Hey, how's it going, guys? I figured I'd take the opportunity to maybe relaunch the PixlTalk podcast. I'll admit I'm not great at doing this solo talking bit. It's not really my jam, but figured I'd give it a shot and see how it goes. But there's just been a lot that's been going on lately. I thought it was a good opportunity. I think that looking through the archives where we left off 12 years ago on PixlTalk. So it's been a pretty long time. A lot of stuff's been going on since then. Obviously, right now in gaming, there's a lot going on. So I figured it was a good opportunity to just sit down, chat for a minute, talk about some topics. Maybe I'll talk about what I'm playing a little bit. But I figured it would be something that was a little bit more personal, something more than just some writing on the site, especially since like video essays and stuff have gotten so popular. But anyway, I guess to kick it off, I hope that everybody is enjoying the relaunch of PixlBit. It's been a lot of work over the past few months for sure. I have been fixing things up as people kind of report them, so I'll just put it out there. If you are having any issues, if anything's broken for you, there's the forums, right? So we have a thread in the forums that will require a login, so you'll have to sign up and go through that whole process as described in my last video. But if you don't want to do that, you have Discord. There is a PixlBit Discord, and I will put a link to that in the show notes that go along with this video. So take a look out for that. But if you do have an issue, there's a channel specifically dedicated for any site issues you have, and I've been pretty active on there, kind of keeping an eye out for things. So if something comes up and you see it, feel free to post a message there. Feel free to post a message on the site. Either way, we've got the space for feedback, and I'm happy to fix things or improve things if there's something that you have an idea for, you think would be better, or you think that would be a nice addition to the site. I'm happy to do all that stuff. So please let me know. So past like standard show stuff or site stuff, I guess there's not a huge backlog of articles left for me to post. I've had a few that have come out kind of like serendipitously with some of this big news that's come out from Microsoft and Sony. But I do have a couple other big features that I'm working on. I got a Star Fox review just posted, which was a phenomenal game. So if you haven't had a chance yet, definitely check out some of the new content on the site. I'd encourage you to also go ahead and post anything that you're thinking. The blogging system's been enhanced pretty dramatically. So there's like, you could post things under different topics. I saw Carrie actually posted a podcast. He tagged it under a blog entry, but please feel free to tag it as a podcast if that's what it is. That'll make it, even more discoverable. It'll show up in the right place on the site. And of course, you have the option to add article images now and references and all this stuff that make your article kind of more findable. And I'm going to be doing some more work to show off some like preview articles and different things when you're looking at a given article based on the tags and the references and all the stuff that's in there. So definitely recommend, if you're posting articles, to leverage the new features. I think that they're pretty helpful. So I think that's kind of all I have to say about the site. But please do offer any feedback that you have. I'll be happy to get that resolved for you. So I guess on to maybe the more main topic that's on my mind. The industry is in a really weird, shitty spot, it feels like. So we saw this week both Sony and Microsoft make a number of announcements. So first of all, I guess we'll start with Sony, since this is the order that it kind of happened. But Sony announced that they're stopping their whole physical game infrastructure. They're just moving to digital. It looks like that transition is happening next year, 2027. And we're really not that far off, I guess, from that occurring. So that's concerning news for a lot of reasons. I guess that's going to affect both the PS5 and later the PS6. So Sony's kind of like charted their ground as far as where they're going. And I mean, I wrote it in my editorial, but I just think that this is like a broadly anti-consumer move. And, one could argue that, hey, Steam, PC, all of that is digital already. Isn't that pretty anti-consumer? And, I would agree that DRM definitely is. I think from like a PC perspective, though, there's a lot more options. So like if you're a Good Old Games GOG member, I know I have a huge library already on GOG. I have a huge library on Steam. I think that my console gaming purchases have really petered out pretty significantly. And for me personally, I'm definitely like an only physical purchaser when it comes to console stuff. I don't really care to get digital games in those kind of closed garden ecosystems. At least on Steam, I could install mods, I could crack the game if I wanted to. I have a lot of options as far as what I do and how I use it that a console just doesn't give me. If you listen to Jason Schreier, he made another good point, which is that this kind of like screws over the library system. I don't really use the rentals for games from the library. My library system here doesn't have much in the way of that. But for a lot of people, that's a huge feature of the library, and it gives them the opportunity to check out games whenever they want. And it's good for the library for people to be checking out games. Of course, there's like serious digital preservation concerns across the board right now. These games just aren't going to be releasing on discs. And even though there's an argument to be made, I make it in the editorial that, discs are already being pressed and they're not containing like the whole game on it. I think that it's still basically the day one release, so you have this preservation opportunity when it comes to that. And that's just going to go away. The secondhand market's going to take a huge hit. Obviously, whatever games are out there are still out there, so there'll still be a secondhand market in some capacity, but it's certainly not going to be the bustling scene that it is now, where pretty much any release that's like major enough winds up on a physical disc or cartridge. So all of that's going to change, and that's going to really limit, I think, the opportunity for people to play some of these games. I know for me, I'm a big secondhand game purchaser. I have a pretty big collection. Most of my collection, I'd say I've gotten secondhand. I'm definitely a deal hunter. So to see that go away is really frustrating and disappointing. Preservation aside, I think that like even in the case of the game key cards that Nintendo's doing on the Switch too, not a fan of those either, but at the very least you could trade it in, you could buy it secondhand. There's nothing on the cartridge, you're still downloading it, it's still eating up all your storage space, but at the very least it's something where there's still value in the game key card, right? You could still resell it, whereas that digital copy has really no value past whatever you're going to get out of it from playing it. And for me personally, I kind of have a huge problem with that. I understand that there's definitely a contingent of the market, probably a lot of the console market, that's just going to move forward and they don't really care. I think Sony cited some like 80-something%, and Capcom said 90-something% of the units they move are all digital, but it doesn't make it clear if those are like all games, if it's DLC, if it's like something as simple as a outfit for something. So it's hard to say how accurate those numbers really are, but I could believe that a good 50 or 60% of the market is buying things digitally. There's definitely a convenience factor. There are sales that happen, so like sometimes there are, like what would be considered a AAA game marked down to like really, really cheap Steam-esque prices. So I think in all of those instances, there's value for the customer, for the consumer. It doesn't really affect everybody in the same way, I would say. But I do think that when it comes down to like buying new games, playing new games, if you're the type of person who is kind of like, I'm going to go in for a new game, and then when I'm done with it, I'm going to trade it in as quickly as possible, and I'm going to put it, whatever money I get, towards the next game, and you're kind of just like following that trend of like get a game, trade a game, get another game, maybe you're spending a little bit of money extra each time to kind of cover the difference between the trade-in value and the price you bought or you're buying at. And I think that like that's just not an option for people. People who use GameFly a lot, I know there's a number of people that I'm friends with that rent games from GameFly. It's how they play pretty much all the new games that they play. There's really no other option for them. So that kind of takes that off the table too. Now, GameFly can't function the way it used to function, and we certainly can't kind of get access to all those new games as quickly as maybe we once did with some of these services in the secondhand market. So I think that that's pretty anti-consumer just on its face. I expect that once no physical copies are really available anymore, that it actually makes it even worse. I think that you're in very much a closed garden. The prices that are driven entirely by those stores. So like Sony will be able to set the price. They'll reap all the benefits of the percentages that they get from each sale. It just makes it where, there's just no benefit for the consumer. It seems like it's all kind of going to Sony. So they're going to make more money. I'm assuming Microsoft's going to do the same. So they'll also make more money selling things from their digital store. And that just leaves us in a spot where, we give up something that had real value, tangible value as consumers that we're just not going to have anymore. And, we're forced to kind of purchase from these walled gardens in order to enjoy the hobby. And I guess like that's not something I'm personally interested in. So it makes it really easy to say, well, I've got a pretty good PC, I built it a few years ago. If I need to put new parts into it, it's totally capable. I tried to future-proof it when I built it, and thankfully I built it before the whole AI thing, so I'm personally in a good spot like that. And I have a Steam Deck, which is also great. I play a bunch of stuff on my Steam Deck. So it kind of puts me in a spot where I think continuing to support PC is the obvious choice for me. And the fact that there are tons of people out there willing to crack games or put them in a playable state despite what a company might want, I appreciate that. And I think that that's a huge value for the PC. And that's not even really going into all of the other things like mods and stuff that the PC kind of offers that you don't get on console that I think really make for a much better ecosystem overall. So that's on the Sony side. I think that it's pretty telling for where the future of the whole industry is going. We're gonna see the end of physical games. I mean, it didn't seem like it was gonna happen, but if there's no media that can be played on the next devices, right? There's no disk drive or there's no cartridge reader or something that allows you to use some physical media. Then that's the end of that. And I don't think that it will be long before Nintendo follows suit, but I could be wrong. I guess like backwards compatibility, another thing, right? So like it's been pretty common over the past few gens that we see backwards compatibility. Obviously that's like still possible with digital games, but if you're like me and you built a physical game library for some of these, that kind of dies on the PS5 or the Xbox Series or whatever, right? Your physical games will only be able to be played there. So that's pretty frustrating. I'm not super keen on that. Microsoft, on the other hand, they're absolutely gutting the industry. It feels like they've let go of 1,600 people. There's another 1,600 to go that they don't even know when that's going to happen. As someone who's been at companies when layoffs are happening, I don't think that there's anything demoralizing than that. And, that's just doing a tech job, right? Granted, games are just tech jobs too in a lot of ways, right? They're managed a lot like tech projects are managed. You have a lot of different team members with a lot of different responsibilities. And, in this instance now, you have these teams that are losing people kind of all over the place. You've got, thinned out teams that now each person on the team has greater responsibility, probably going to have to crunch harder. I'm guessing that, their pay isn't going up for all the extra work that they're doing. And I think that that's just like a really bad combination for an industry that, while obviously based in business and trying to make as much money as possible, it's a creative industry, right? It's one where creativity is kind of king. So if you're in a spot where you're just, I don't know, ground down because you're working a lot, you're crunching a lot, your friend just got fired, laid off, whatever, the people who you once went to for answers aren't there anymore. Maybe it's not somebody you worked closely with, but somebody who you consulted when you're trying to do something. When all those people go away or teams are really thinned out, that's just bad. It's bad for morale. It's bad for the end product. So I have a feeling that, even the stuff that does wind up coming out is going to be not as good as maybe it might have been had the team stayed together. We just saw yesterday id Software just got totally decimated. There's just like nobody left in that whole organization at this point. It seems like they fired a lot of tech people, which is crazy to me. Id Tech and their engine has always been kind of cutting edge and one of the best on the market. And now we're left with what, Unreal Engine? I mean, Unity kind of shot themselves in the head, so there's nothing really there. Godot is out there, but I feel like that's more of like a hobbyist engine. So, you have id Tech, which again wasn't being licensed by a lot of people, but I believe within Microsoft to have id Tech kind of available to you is a huge boon. And they're just, I don't know, just deciding that they don't care anymore. They cut people at Obsidian. I think they canceled a project they were working on. They moved them off to a Fallout game, which I'm sure people are happy about. But what's the impact of that? Or is that Fallout game going to be rushed? Is it going to be as good as it would have been had, the team stayed together? Is that the thing that they're passionate about right now? I mean, they were working on something else. I think that there's a good chance that they were probably really invested in that project, and now that's kind of like pulled out from underneath you. I just think that all of that stuff starts to affect people in a pretty profound way. And I think that it's going to show through in the quality of the work that we get down the line. Thankfully, Microsoft hasn't killed every studio that they're parting ways with. People like Double Fine and Compulsion, Undead Labs, I think got sold. But like studios like Arcane absolutely got demolished. And these are beloved studios that have veterans who have been working there, have assembled teams that have built, award-winning games. So I just don't really understand how any of that rights the ship or makes anything better. I don't understand what path they're on there. Like, yeah, short term, you're saving money, I guess, because you're like cutting all these salaries, 1,600 salaries, people making probably $100,000, $200,000 a year. Yeah, that adds up to be a lot. But, are you going to make the money down the line? And it seems like so many of these studios just got fucked over by, this whole Game Pass strategy that was in play. Even someone like Double Fine, who's been cut loose, they're independent again. I have doubts that they're going to survive in this industry, given just the way that things are going. And they haven't been really working on big games. And I think that generally speaking, when they do make big games, like, they need somebody who's holding their feet to the fire a certain amount to get things done. I think that like their smaller artsy games are really cool, and I like them a lot. I've always appreciated kind of that artistic flair that they have, but like games like that are just not profitable enough, I don't think, to keep existing. So it just feels like a really bad combination of stuff. And I think that on top of that, just across the industry, we're seeing tons of contraction. There's been a lot of people laid off. If we move past Microsoft and Sony, we've just seen a tremendous amount of layoffs across the board, across every type of job in the industry. And it hasn't mattered whether that the company that they're, the studio, I should say, that they're laying off, the people that they're laying off or closing, that they could have made a great game. They could have made a game that both sold well, that reviewed well, and whether that game was good or bad, it feels like the cuts are happening no matter what. And I think that part of that is fueled by this whole AAA industry and like constantly having to make things bigger and better. Look at the size of games, even as an example, right? They're like tens of gigabytes at this point. It's, you want to get, I think GTA is like 80 or something. I forget. No, maybe it's in the hundreds. I forget. Anyway, but a normal game's like 80 gigabytes. And, that's like enormous. So it's unquestionably being taken up by assets. So like when you're talking about building a AAA game, you're talking about putting an enormous amount of effort into every asset that's used in the game. Really, really big textures that have to be, well articulated. And you have the whole AI thing going on right now. Obviously, that's like throwing all sorts of chaos into the development pipeline. I feel like from, maybe from like a coding perspective, there's some benefits that are being reaped there. But I think from like an artistic perspective, you're just seeing this like slop crap get put into games. And, that I guess that's like a shortcut maybe to saving some money, but I don't know that it's bearing out in the numbers. And I think that like the risk of doing it is higher, and the value just isn't there in the end. So I think that like until we write something here, right, where we make smaller scope games, or we decrease the visual fidelity, or we don't step it up as much, like I just don't understand how people will make PS6 games and have them be profitable. Every game now is a huge risk. If you build a game and you release a game and you don't put up these just absolutely absurd numbers, then the game is a failure, and that's just like, that's unreasonable. I think for me personally, I've always been kind of like a B game enthusiast, and during the really like the PS3, Xbox 360, PS2, like those two generations there, I think there was just like a lot of big companies making small games or like medium-sized games that were interesting, creative, daring in some way, did something new. And I feel like that's sorely missing in the industry today. And it feels like a fix to me to some of these other problems. Like, yeah, make your AAA games. We should still make AAA games. I'm not saying that there's no need for them or that nobody wants them. But just that it feels like the whole industry is kind of aligned around making that style of game, and the budgets are matching that, right? And then but the outcomes aren't the same. And when you start seeing a lot of games that are kind of built in the same format, like it feels like the sandbox format is still very much the same. It's that Ubisoft sandbox in everything, or the first person shooter format, or people align on a live service format or whatever, right? Like it feels like people figure out, or a company gets a hit that matches some format, and then everybody starts copying it, right? Like how many Souls-likes are there today? But the reality is that the market can't support all of these games that are so similar in so many ways, and the sales show that, like, yeah, even if a couple million people buy it, it's still not enough to make the game profitable. So I think that like there's some major course correction that has to be done, and I think the surge in pricing of component parts for building consoles, for building PCs, should be a pretty sobering fact for game companies right now, right? Like, if I'm Sony or I'm Nintendo or Microsoft and I'm building my next box, maybe you shouldn't be aiming at a huge performance boost, like a big step up in anything, because you're going to pay out the nose for all the parts, and then you're perpetuating the same pattern, right? Where the expectation is that you're getting these like absurdly beautiful games and super high textures, and it requires 1 million people to build it. And the studios that are making these things are never making their money back, and they're being shuttered as a result. So it feels like a death spiral to me. I don't know if it is yet, but it feels like something where the industry isn't reacting yet, and that is going to net more bad stuff, whatever that happens to be. And they could take stuff away from us as consumers like they are, right? They're going to kill physical games. That's now hardware you don't have to put in a new system. That's extra money on every single game sale that you make. But is there a contraction from that? I don't know. I mean, we'll see. Maybe it all equalizes out in the end for these companies, but it just feels like everything gets shittier for us, and it doesn't really get to the point where things are better. And I guess right now I'm not seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. And there's also indie games, obviously, which are bigger now than ever, but I feel like while there's lots of interesting, fun indie games, like I'll talk about one that I'm playing in a little bit here. I think that like they're not quite that B tier, a little bit bigger budget, mid tier type style game. They're like maybe a notch below that. And because they don't have these huge budgets to work with, like the indie games that have the most funding and the most established studios kind of wind up making those breakout hits. And I think even more lately, it's like there's been a lot of trend chasing in indies. So like how many friend slop games are there at this point? How many roguelikes, how many deck builders? Like it feels like this kind of the same thing. Like some indie studio hits big on an idea or a concept, and then everybody chases that same concept and idea. That's not all of the indie space, right? Like I don't mean to make that like that's the only thing happening in the indie space, but it does feel like it's a predominant trend. I think like even Vampire Survivors is like another one, right? You saw that come out, and then there's like copycat games that followed suit very quickly after. So it just feels like maybe there's this like feedback cycle that's happening in gaming where some person hits it big on something, everybody chases that same trend, we get a glut of all the same kinds of games until people are like, I don't want this anymore, and then they move on to the next thing. But that's feeling like it's less and less durable as time goes on. But that could just be me, right? Like I'll admit I wouldn't say my interest in gaming is dissipated. I still play games every single day. But definitely my interest in the direction that the industry has kind of taken, especially over this generation, has been very much not of interest to me. I've found myself playing less and less games. And, so I might have, I guess, my own weird blinders on, or my own view of it that's like a little different. But as somebody who's like very much a gameplay oriented person, story games don't do anything for me. The walking simulators aren't like my jam. I don't care for deck builders and roguelikes, and all of that stuff is like wears pretty thin for me. So it could just be that at this moment in time, a lot of the things that are like predominant in gaming are just not my cup of tea. But, like for instance, when it comes to roguelikes, I feel like that's a trend that was chased because indie studios could make a game that feels bigger and more by having, your run reset every single time, right? It adds this longevity to the experience. And I feel like that's what they're building to in the game that they're making. And as somebody who's made a game, and somebody who makes software for a living, I get it. Like if you could find things that hook people and make people invested in the loop that you've built, like that's great. That's your goal. That's what you're trying to do. So I don't know. That's where I sit with games. I think lately is just like a lack of interest in a lot of the trends that are happening right now. So I've found myself playing kind of less and less, or maybe just more and more obscure stuff. So I'll move it off to like a more positive topic, because it's been pretty depressing reading about all this shit and seeing what's happening to these studios, seeing the industry contract so heavily. Nothing great about that. So like I said at the beginning, I recently released my Star Fox review. I'm a huge Star Fox fan. I've been a huge Star Fox fan since the very first game came out. My parents got it for me on my 8th birthday. which was very shortly after the game had released in March. And I was just obsessed with the game. Like, I played it nonstop. By the time Star Fox 64 came out, I was so ready for it. I thought Star Fox 2 was going to land for a long time. Obviously, that got canceled and then released, kind of unexpectedly on the SNES Classic. So Star Fox 64 came out, and I adored that game. I got all the medals in it. Played it for way too long, probably. So when they announced that they were remaking it, I know a lot of people were taking their pot shots, and I get it. It's like Star Fox has been this like series that it feels like it's always failed to start, even though there's so many games in the series at this point. So I think that, like, in that regard, it's I get it, but like, it's just such a good remake. They did such a good job. I really, really love what they did with that game. It looks gorgeous. It plays great. It feels great. They added so much character to it. The cutscenes add so much. It's just a really, really, really well done game. So I would really recommend it if you like on-rail shooters, if you like arcade score attack games. Definitely check it out. Check out the review. And give it a shot if you've got a Switch too. It's definitely worth your time. So past that, I've been playing a game called Pseudoregalia. So yeah, I just picked up Pseudoregalia on the Steam sale, and if you haven't heard of the game before, it's an indie game, and it's I'd call it a platformer. It's got some action and adventure stuff going on. So your character, you collect a weapon pretty early on, and it's like a sword, and the sword both lets you attack and it lets you heal. And kind of as you go through the game, you pick up more and more abilities. So it has a pretty strong focus on platforming, much more than it does when it comes to like action and stuff. So I'd call it more of like a 3D platformer. You use the sword kind of as a part of the combat, but I'm not 100% sure, but it feels like it gives you a little bit of forward momentum if you swing it in the air. So, and as you kind of step through the game, you earn more and more abilities. It kind of starts with, you just have your really simple jump, you pick up the sword, and now you have your attacks. It winds up becoming that you can do like this, I wouldn't call it a double jump, it's like a wall jump, and you get 3 of them. So you pick that up, and then you can start doing this wall jump. Eventually you get a slide, which lets you go under certain things. So it has like kind of this Metroidvania aspect to it. As you pick up more and more abilities, it kind of opens up different areas. You'll learn something that lets you like smash downward, so you can go through holes in the floor. You earn a jump that kind of proceeds after the slide, so you could do like a slide and a jump, and you get really, really far. With the sword, when you get that downward smash, if you hit it off the ground and then you jump right after, you'll get like this extra high jump. So it has this really, really satisfying movement to it. And so you wind up getting an upgrade eventually that gives you access to a map, which comes at just the right time because it's pretty tough to navigate without it. I play all the Souls games pretty frequently, but even like Elden Ring has a map at this point, but I'd say like those maps in in Dark Souls tend to be much more memorable in a certain way. This game has kind of like this PS1 aesthetic, so it can be a little disorienting, I think, in the beginning, especially trying to figure out where you're going, where you've been, where you still have left to go. So what wound up happening kind of as I've been playing through it for the past few days, I made what felt like a big loop ultimately, and I wound up back at the beginning of the game in a sense, and I wound up stumbling across where you get the map, which I maybe could have gotten much earlier in my quest than I actually did. Maybe I just missed it. I'm not 100% sure. But now that I have it, I feel like I could kind of start navigating around more effectively again. So I've really enjoyed the movement of the game. It's not easy, and the movement's not. It doesn't feel super smooth, but not in a bad way. It's like a higher skill ceiling is what it feels like. So when you engage with the game, you really have to be deliberate about how you jump, where you jump, when you execute the kick forward, which when you connect with the wall will execute the wall kick. So you kind of have to like plan your angles and make sure, like if you're trying to get down a corridor and there are walls on either side, you kind of have to like go at just the right angle so that you're getting enough forward momentum. Then there's like, there's like all this other movement tech that feels like it's a part of it. So you could like bounce off the floor, get the high bounce, do your kick forward, or you could like slide off a ledge and you'll get like really fast speed, and you could kind of parlay that into another move, which will give you some distance. So like all in all, the game is like has a little bit of a learning curve, it feels like, but the movement feels just really, really good and really natural kind of as you get used to it, or more natural. And I've just found myself really enjoying going through the castle that's in the game and the surrounding areas. It definitely has like that Dark Souls feel a little bit, even though it's like not like gameplay feel, but like the vibe maybe is what I'm trying to say. So really, really good game. I think I picked it up for like $4 and change on the Steam sale, which is just like a phenomenal value. I've probably played it at least 5 or 6 hours already, I think. So big recommend on that one too. Definitely would say if you are interested or you like 3D platformers and you don't mind like having a little bit of like action with like the sword combat, I'd say even the combat feels pretty good and kind of fun, even though it's pretty simple. So like in the game, when you attack enemies, you build up your like magic bar. You could use that magic bar to fill up your health, and then like basically every notch on the magic bar correlates to 1 full health, and most enemies do like a half of a health point, and you start with 3, but you could pick up health power-ups as you go. Like I've picked up I think like 6 of them, so I have a total of 5 health points at this point. And then when you're doing combat, it refills that magic meter, and it also fills up this like attack meter that goes up to level 3. And if you don't use your healing, it'll stay at that attack level 3, which will make you take down foes more quickly. But once you like use your health, it drops down. So I've found that there's not a huge penalty to like using the magic to fill up your health. So kind of go nuts, like use it as much as you want, but there is that more quick outcome of a fight that if you just like don't use your healing and you can kind of dodge the enemy and get in a bunch of hits, you'll take them down quicker. So a nice little trade-off there with how that's designed. Trying to think of anything else about the game that I thought was like really notable. All in all, I think I've really enjoyed it so far. I was playing a game, Pipistrello and the Cursed Yo-Yo, which is like a Zelda-like kind of game. It's got like a Metroidvania type progression as well, where the things that you pick up and the moves that you get with your yo-yo allow you to move forward. It's like an old school 2D Zelda type game. And I think that I've had a hard time getting through it all the way. I haven't loved it as much as I thought I'd wind up liking it. The movement feels a little loose, and the game's got like a real big hard-on for combat. It'll throw you in a room with like a ton of enemies, and sometimes that can be fun, but a lot of times it just winds up being kind of annoying. When you die, you like lose money and stuff, and you just don't get it back. So you wind up having to replay a room with like lowered health, or you have to bail out and go back to your like hideout space or whatever, and then go all the way back to where you were. And the game also has this weird design that I don't know that I really liked in the end, but you're kind of always at a disadvantage as you play the game. So you can upgrade your abilities in your yo-yo and these badges that you get. and you spend into debt to get it. So you like buy it all on credit. And then as you're playing, it'll like take some of the money. So think like The Messenger, if you've played that, when you die and it refills your helper guy, like he takes your money until you pay him back for saving you. And then you start earning money again. Kind of like that, except it takes half your money and it puts it towards the upgrade that you've purchased. And all the upgrades come with this like mandatory penalty that exists with it. So like sometimes it'll make enemies not drop hearts, or you'll lose badge points. So a badge that was helping you, you'll have to unequip it in order, or like automatically unequips it if you buy the power up. So your build is like constantly shifting, and it almost never feels stable in any way. And I guess like personally, I really didn't prefer constantly kind of having to make that decision to spend the money that I'm earning. And you can't, if you like, let's say you bank up like 2,000 coins or whatever, you can't just buy any of those upgrades outright. You always have to go into kind of this debt mode where you're paying it back, so you're not getting as much money. And you know, obviously when you lose money, that doesn't allow you to buy the badges that you might want to buy, and it doesn't allow you to upgrade those badges. That just costs straight money. And then obviously you're like paying down the debt as you get it, so you can't avoid having this negative impact on your character. So it's like between the way too much combat, kind of finicky controls, like they have like these puzzles where you're pairing together these moves where you'll maybe like throw your yo-yo somewhere, and then you have to like navigate around through using the yo-yo string to get to where the yo-yo itself is. Or you might like do the walk the dog move, which allows you to go over water areas, but if you hit a wall or whatever, it'll bounce off, and then you could smack your yo-yo off the wall, and then it'll bounce you forward, and you could kind of like almost navigate backwards by hitting your yo-yo off the wall. So you wind up in these big puzzles, and every time you die, you lose life. And then eventually it's like, if you try enough times and you fail enough times, you'll die, and then you have to redo that whole part, and you lost your coin. And I don't know, it's just like that movement always felt so finicky. I felt like I died a lot on stuff that just was like, oh, it's just really precise movement, and it just like doesn't feel that great a lot of times. So maybe I'll wind up finishing it. I think I'm pretty close to the end of the game, but I didn't really care for it in the end. And then like the kind of the weird knock-on effect is that I wanted to play Mina the Hollower, but I'm like kind of put off from playing that kind of game right now because of the Pipistrello experience, I guess you'd say. So I don't know. It's maybe something like it's gotten great reviews, Pipistrello, which is part of why I bought it. But I don't think I liked it anywhere near as much as other people did. Some of the reviews I read felt like they didn't get very far in the game because they don't talk at all about like some of the stuff that annoys me the most about it, like just not even a mention, which seems weird. I think outside of that, I really haven't been playing too much else. I do have a piece that's coming out on the site maybe next week sometime. I have to finish writing it, but it's kind of about this concept of games as a platform themselves. So one of the interesting things that I think I've gotten into a lot lately is playing ROM hacks of different kinds. So like when I started, like I got super into Mario Maker right around where the pandemic happened. And then that led pretty much into me playing Super Mario World Kaizo, which is like ROM hacks of Super Mario World on the SNES. I wound up getting, a Super NT and a FX Pack Pro to play all that stuff on the TV with like no input lag and all of that. So now that I have this whole like SNES setup, I wound up doing other ROM hacks, like I did Zelda ROM hack, Link to the Past, where it basically just like improved kind of everything about Zelda, like made it a little bit more modern, I guess that's the right word, more modern, like a lot of quality of life fixes. Same thing for Metroid, Super Metroid, so really some really cool Super Metroid hacks that just like make the game feel better, play more in line with kind of some of the newer 2D Metroid games. So all of that was kind of like a gateway to playing other ROM hacks. So I think maybe during the pandemic at some point I was playing Banjo-Kazooie Jiggies in Time, which is like a Banjo-Kazooie ROM hack that uses Ocarina of Time's map. So that was really cool. The same guy who made that made some other Banjo-Kazooie mods, so I played some of those. And that kind of led to some Super Mario 64 ROMs. There's like a huge scene around that. So the idea for the piece and kind of where I found myself lately is looking at these older games as kind of like platforms in and of themselves, where, you know, Super Mario World isn't like, not that I dislike the original Super Mario World. I love it. It's always been my favorite of the whole 2D series. But that it's like I'm not playing that game. I mean, I am playing that game, but I'm playing all of these other games built on that engine at this point. And I've played, I don't know, somewhere close to like 400 of those Kaizo ROM hacks. So if you go to SMW Central, Super Mario World Central.net, SMWCentral.net, you could kind of download those. They're not all Kaizo, like that's just the variant of that engine that I like to play. But there's like troll hacks. There's, you know, like for instance, there's a hack called The Plumber for All Seasons that feels very much like just like a straight up sequel to Super Mario World. Really, really clean, super well done. Lot of effort put into it. So the platform of Super Mario World is actually super interesting. The engine itself has like incredible depth. There's all this stuff that they built into the game that if you've played the main game, they really don't take advantage of. Nintendo doesn't take advantage of. So it's really fascinating to play these ROM hacks where it pushes the engine kind of to the limit, and they have so many hacks that use kind of these really obscure interactions of the engine that make it work. And even like I've made 2 hacks myself, and one of them I have like a particular setup that allows you to like swim in lava, but that particular map piece is just never used in Super Mario World. But it has this like unique behavior to it, and it's technically in the vanilla game. But you can kind of like unlock that by using Lunar Magic. You have access to kind of the full set of what was built into the game and into the engine. And it just makes for some really, really interesting levels and gameplay that's kind of had me hooked for a long time. So like while I'm not playing necessarily a lot of bigger releases or, you know, modern games, I've played, you know, like I said, since probably 2021, I think I got that set up. So in the past 5 years or so, I've played like 400 of those things. You know, there's just, and there's so many more. Like I've played so many. I've made my own, and there's like hundreds more that I haven't played. So there's just always something. People are always releasing new ones. If you kind of dig in, you'll find, like, go to romhacking.net, you'll find just countless hacks that people build. But not all games wind up in this, like, almost like using it for the engine to make new games. So, but Super Mario 64 is absolutely one of those games that has that. There's like countless Super Mario 64 ROM hacks. If you follow Kaze Emanuar, he's like a German YouTuber. He's built a number of different number of different N64 ROM hacks. So he built a pretty famous Zelda one that's meant to sit in between Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. So I've got that queued up at some point to play. And he's got a pretty big hack coming out called Return to Yoshi's Island, which looks really, really interesting. He's basically rewritten the Super Mario 64 engine, which is super incredible. The other thing that I've found myself getting really into are like decompilations and recompilations. So that's effectively where they're taking the old original game, they're getting it working natively on the PC, right? Whether that's on Windows or Linux or Mac, like wherever you play, it tends to be that they compile it for any of those systems. And then you could just play these games natively with like a Xbox controller or, you know, whatever you want right on your computer. And I've just found that to be like really incredible. People put all this effort in and they get the graphics looking, you know, the best that they possibly could. You know, people putting like ray tracing into these games, like just wild stuff, you know, like Banjo-Kazooie, all those mods that I talked about all work on the, I think it's a decomp. So they all work on the decomp. I've played them on the decomp. Like it's crazy. I think Donkey Kong 64 just came out, decompiled, and it's got the Switch Anywhere mod on there where you can switch between the Kongs anywhere you're at. So there's like all this stuff where people are even taking these older games and freshening them up for the modern day. And I've found that to be just really fascinating and fun. Like I've had a ton of fun playing that stuff. So while my interest, I think, in some of the modern gaming landscape has been diminished, this kind of like hobbyist side has been, it's really taken over for me. I think I've played just more of that kind of stuff than anything else in the past few years. So if you're interested in any of that, you know, definitely hit me up. I'd be happy to help walk you through some of the landscape there if you're interested in getting into it. It's a fascinating time in gaming. It feels like it's kind of like exploded out in every direction. So while we have like all these crazy problems happening at this macro level with these big companies and stuff, I feel like the hobbyist world, you know, not just hobbyist, but like if you consider indie games kind of like a hobbyist level, and a lot of times they are, there's just so much gaming out there to be had that it's impossible to kind of get your arms around it. For as much as I played in the past, for as much as I play now, it's like I feel like so much of what I play no one's even heard of, and like I think that's really cool that gaming's gotten that big and that there's so many people who are contributing in these really unique and interesting ways. I mean, I'm doing it myself, so yeah, I don't know. I think it's a weird, interesting moment right now where there's just a lot going on. So yeah, I don't want this to go too much longer. I feel like I've been talking for a long time already, but keep an eye out on PixlBit. There's going to be more and more stuff coming. If you're interested in contributing, this was actually the last thing I wanted to talk about. I kind of forgot, but if you're interested in contributing, it's actually easier than ever to contribute on PixlBit. So like we used to have a pretty big staff. Pretty much everybody's kind of gone their own ways at this point and done their own things because the site's been so inactive for so long, which I totally understand, totally reasonable. Speaking of which, Stage Select, if you haven't been following what Julian's doing, big shout out to those guys. They put on a great show. I try to listen every episode. So kind of the spiritual successor to Nerds Without Pants. Big recommend on that too. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check it out. They have like a whole Patreon setup and stuff where they do like extra features, and it's a fun show and it's got a great vibe. And you know, Julian and Justin have been doing this for so long now that they're just really good at it. So definitely check them out. But anyway, that's an aside. For contributing on PixlBit, really anybody can do it. So the article tools I was mentioning in the beginning are really set up for you to build whatever you want. And if you write something really interesting, you think that it's something you'd love to see featured on the main site, just shoot me a direct message on the site, or shoot me a message on Discord, or just try to get a hold of me somehow, because I can promote those articles if you have them. You know, we might go through like an editing cycle where I help you clean it up if I see some stuff. But right away, you know, do some stuff, write some stuff that makes you interested. If you want to write a review, you know, you see that we don't have a review on the site, write a review, you know, put it out there. If you need a product in the database, I can add that. Eventually, I'm going to add the tools where people can add their own products. I just haven't done it yet. So that's like, I think the most important part is that the biggest point of rewriting PixlBit, like I had a few goals when I did it, but the kind of the driving design choice that I made when I started redesigning it like a decade ago was making it so that anybody can contribute. Like I think you could see now how like the main site integrates the blogs as kind of like a main part of it, or I guess it's probably more accurate to call them user articles at this point. So like user articles are right there on the homepage. You just click the red little flame button and it'll switch to the view that includes user articles. And there's going to be some opportunity in the future too. I haven't done it yet. Again, maybe when things get a little bit more active, where it'll boost up, if you get enough upvotes, it'll boost it up to an official article. So there's some of that stuff. One of the other ideas or thoughts was that, in the absence of the staff being there, right, or having kind of dedicated people producing content all the time, is that the community can really make PixlBit be the like really exciting community area that produces its own content, and kind of the good content gets surfaced to the top. And I wanted to do that in kind of the setting of like an old internet site. Now everything's very algorithmic. It's trying to push things to discover onto you. I mean, again, me personally, like I don't really consume social media much. I'm on Blue Sky, but more than anything, like I follow it for Wario64, if I'm being totally frank. I follow a few other people, especially people who wrote for PixlBit for a long time or frequented PixlBit, but for me, social media is like not really a thing. I used Reddit for a little bit, but I don't really use Reddit anymore. I think that there's a lot of value to kind of this old format of like longer form writing. And I wanted to open that up where we can have a community of people that are contributing that kind of writing and bringing something maybe a little bit different that you don't see a lot these days on the internet. So that was a big motivation. The other like couple things that I'll say is that the source code for PixlBit, my intent is to open source it. So right now it's closed source still, but that's just because I built it as quickly as I could. So there's like some things that I need to kind of change to make considerations for more of an open source build. Take out some like the PixlBit specific stuff, but the actual like site itself, I'd say, is set up to be like a community enthusiast site, and it doesn't have to be video games. It's not built even like right now you see it's very video game oriented, obviously, but the guts of the site aren't video game tailored per se any longer. So I did a lot of work in the rewrite trying to like make it more generic, because I want to be able to put this technology out there if somebody else wanted to host the blog. So then the last part is that I'd also love to have, even though we have the long form content, I want to create kind of like the ability to post short form content similar to like a Twitter or Blue Sky. So what I'll eventually be adding is right on the homepage, the ability to switch to your follow feed. And in your follow feed, I'll allow people, anybody, to post kind of like short snippets, very similar to a Twitter or a Blue Sky. And though that follow feed, your follow feed, right? So if you go to the site right now and you go to your profile or your dashboard, there's a button there to get to your follow feed. It's a little bit in the weeds right now. I just kind of like added it somewhere because I just wanted to get the site out there. But I'm going to be adding it kind of the homepage, and then when it's on the homepage, that kind of like additional content will be in there, the short form content. So let's just say you like beat a boss, or you picked up a new game or whatever, and you don't want to write a whole blog, or you don't want to wait until you've kind of like put together enough content to write a blog. This would give you the opportunity to like post that as like a teaser, or like let's say you did write a review and you're really proud of it, and you want to resurface it in a sense, right? You'll be able to post a short form comment that's like, hey, I wrote this review last week, like check it out, leave a comment. So that's something else that I'm looking to build into the site that I think people will like. So so those are some of like the motivations for building it, is like have a new platform, have something that's modern where I could keep building new stuff onto it. I've always liked having the site there as like a playground for me as like a technologist to build things in. It helps me solve other problems a lot of times. Like usually if I'm solving a problem in PixlBit, it's like a problem I also have to solve somewhere else for work stuff or, other passion projects I'm working on. So, so PixlBit I think is gonna keep growing. Pretty soon I'm going to try to do like a mass mailer to everybody who has an account on the site to let them know that it's like rebooted. And I'm hoping that I can kind of drag back some of the community who used to be here all the time. If you're seeing this and you're in the community, or you send this to someone in the community, I would encourage you to like get them to get involved. I'd love to get the site active again and get people kind of out there. And I want to, me personally, like I enjoy doing some video game writing. It's been a long time. And I think that the whole grind of like doing reviews and all that stuff really wore me out. It was a long time of doing that. And I think that the thing that I find more interesting now is kind of writing about all sorts of other topics, or like more industry stuff or editorial. And if I do a review, it's probably a game that I'm playing or a game that I played. Just on my personal time, not something I'm reviewing for somebody. Like Star Fox, right? I just bought Star Fox and played it and wrote the review on the site. I'll probably do a review for Pseudoregalia. But yeah, as I play stuff, I want to review it. And I'll probably keep doing more and more writing on some of this, I'd say, outside the realm of kind of normal gaming stuff, the things that I'm into lately. So, like I got a Super Station 1, which is where I've been playing all these ROM hacks. So like that's something I'd love to do a write-up on. So I'd encourage everybody to do writing as well if you got things that interest you right now. But that's, for me, that's kind of the stuff that I'm looking to be writing about and posting about on the site. And the old site was just kind of in such bad shape that it wasn't something I even wanted to use personally anymore. So I appreciate all of you out there. Night Driver, Carrie, San Andreas, all you guys like who have been sticking with the site. Daftman, sorry, there's other people, but like you guys have really stuck with the site. You've been posting stuff kind of continuously even through all these years, which blows my mind. But thank you for helping keep the site alive still. Thanks for sticking with it even when it's been a huge piece of shit, in my opinion. I think now it's less of a piece of shit. I'm generally proud of where it's at this point. I think it came out all right. But yeah, I would love to get the old crew back and have more people here. So anyway, this is getting long. I think I've been going for over an hour. So anyway, PixlBit 3.0, it's out there. PixlTalk 83, I guess this is it. I'll probably try to publish this as an MP3 too, and I think what I'm going to wind up doing is making a new podcast RSS feed that just has like all of the PixlBit podcasts of all time on there, and then I'll toss this on that feed too, I guess, eventually. But anyway, as you can tell, my list of things to do is long, and I probably will not get to all of it as quickly as I want. I've got a company I'm trying to bootstrap to on the side, so there's plenty going on. It's been very busy, but thank you guys, thank you everybody. Thanks for tuning in today. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Like and subscribe. I think I'm supposed to say that if this is going on YouTube. Anyway, but thank you guys. We'll chat again soon. See ya.